George Russell was an American jazz pianist, composer, band leader, and musical theorist. He's probably best known for his 1953 book, Lydian Chromatic Concept for Tonal Organization, which sounds like a real page turner. Basically, he discovered F sharp, or at least discovered putting F sharp into the key of C instead of F. And he was instrumental, apparently, no pun intended, in the development of modal jazz. So in his early life, he sang in church choirs and listened to riverboat music. He sang Moon Over Miami with Fats Waller at the age of 7. He then started his musical career as a drummer. He was called up for the draft for World War II, but was hospitalized with tuberculosis. And during his hospitalization, he learnt music theory. In the early 40s, he moved to New York and got in with a crowd of people, which included Miles Davis and Charlie Parker and others. In 1945, he was back in hospital for 16 months with his tuberculosis again. He worked out the basis for his famous book. He started playing the piano and working as a band leader in 1964, so this is nearly 20 years later. He moved to Scandinavia because of his disgust with race relationships in America. He released lots of albums in the 80s and slowed down in the 90s, and he died in 2009.
Hi, my name's Dan, and this is a review of The Jazz Workshop by George Russell, which is an album of small band instrumental jazz, and it's my first time listening to it. So it's got 12 shortish tracks, and unusually for a jazz album with a named leader, George Russell doesn't actually play much on this album at all. He is the arranger, but he does play chromatic drums, which is a passage in one of the tracks, which is it's a tuned kind of percussion. So generally what we've got here is upright bass, drums, piano, trumpet, guitar, sax, and flute. Not all of them all at the same time necessarily on all of the track. And the one name that I knew out of those is Bill Evans on the piano. So what it does is it mixes what I would call more straightforward jazz with quite a bit of discordance and dissonance at various points. One of the reviews of the album said that the harmonies are frequently original. And I think, yeah, that's a reasonable neutral word to use for it. So it really is all about the textures here. There's some great playing. Apparently, as an album, it pushed new boundaries. The Penguin Guide to Jazz said it had as almost unique avenues of thought in the jazz language. So people have regarded this as being pushing new grounds and being unusual. But putting all those technicalities aside, with jazz albums, I always try to do this. Did I enjoy it? Regardless of how significant it was in the development. And I think I would say my response was mixed. So I enjoyed the more accessible jazz bits, especially the kind of the hot jazz sections, which is, fast ding, 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 ding kind of stuff. Somewhat enjoyed the more atmospheric bits, and there were bits of that I felt kind of led somewhat in the direction of slightly more classical stuff. So the term for that in jazz is third stream. So I think some of it was leaning in that direction. I think particularly the flute led it in that direction. But I did quite dislike the quite strident, discordant sections. I mean, occasionally, if it's used well, I can be up for discordance. Often, strangely, not so much in jazz. So I would say it's more varied in textures than most jazz albums. It does feel a bit like it's an intellectual exercise, more than it is an album to enjoy listening to. Unless you're the sort of person who likes listening to jazz that's an intellectual exercise and pushing the boundaries, which um, I I recognise there's a place for this. I think experimentation in music is a good thing. It doesn't mean that all experiments are good. For example, a sprout crumble wouldn't be a good thing to try. It would be an experiment, but it wouldn't be nice. I'm not saying this is quite as bad as that, but For me, I didn't find some of it, hugely listenable. So that's my opinion of this album. And as always, I'd really love to hear from you what your opinion of the album is. So please do that by leaving me a comment. But that's it from me for now.